What's up, Smart Homers? My name's Aaron, and in this video, I want to show you guys a new product from TerraMaster that I have been testing for about a month, and I really love it. It's called the TerraMaster F8 SSD Plus, and it's a network-attached storage system that only uses solid-state drives, no physical hard drives. This thing has really nice specs, including a Core i3 8-core CPU, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, and a 10 gigabit Ethernet port. It's 8 bay, meaning it can take 8 solid state drives, and they provide you with these little heat sinks to go on each of the drives for proper cooling. TerraMaster sent this thing for me to check out, and they also partnered with Western Digital to send me 8 of Western Digital's SSDs. I'm going to walk you through the setup procedure so you can see how easy it is to install these drives and get this thing working, and I'll tell you about my experiences with it. Okay, so let's go over what we have in the box. First, we have the power adapter and the power cable, which of course you're going to need that. We have an Ethernet cable that'll be used for connecting this thing to our network. We have a screwdriver and some screws, and then we have a bunch of heat sinks that you put on your SSDs, which we'll get into when we set this thing up. Taking a look at the NAS itself, it's a pretty clean looking device and pretty small. I'll put dimensions on the screen here, but really small, and I'll show you why that's important to me. On the back, you can see we have a USB-C port, 2 USB-A ports, a 10 gigabit Ethernet port, an HDMI port, and your DC power jack. You also have a reset button and a little knurled thumb screw for opening up the case and taking this thing apart. On the bottom, you can see the 2 cooling fans, which are pretty decent in size, and there's 2 little feet on the bottom to give them space to cool. And on the top, you can see the ventilation so that the airflow can go right through the case. So let's go ahead and take apart this thumb screw so we can open up the device and see where those SSDs are installed. Once you've taken out the thumb screw, you can just push the bottom of the NAS, and the internal unit slides out of the case. Here you can see the 4 slots on this side of the PCB for installing your SSDs, and there's 4 more slots on the back. There's a massive heatsink on this one side for cooling the CPU and internals, and on the other side you can see the RAM. Apparently this RAM is swappable, so you should be able to upgrade this if you want. Now TerraMaster has a really good walkthrough for setting up your device, so you can just walk through this step-by-step guide, and by the end you should have all your SSDs installed as well as it set up on your PC or whatever you're connecting this thing to. Like I mentioned before, Western Digital did partner with TerraMaster to send me 8 250 gigabyte SSDs. Now, normally I would go with larger SSDs for this, but for this test, 250 gigabytes each is fine for a total of 2,000 gigabytes of storage. Now, these SSDs are M.2 2280 SSDs, and they're built specifically for use in a NAS application, so they're perfect for our use case. We'll go ahead and open each of these SSDs, and then we can start installing them. Now, before we install these SSDs, we're actually going to add the heat sinks. And like I mentioned before, they come with this thermal sticky pad, and you install these heat sinks by putting down the sticky thermal pad onto the SSD or onto the heatsink, and then sticking the heatsink to the SSD. Now, you can see that SSD label is in between the sticky pad and the SSD itself, but that's the way they're showing me to do it, so I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. I assume that if that label wasn't there, you'd have better heat transfer, but I don't know. So now that all of those heat sinks are installed on the SSDs, we can go ahead and put the SSDs into the F8 SSD Plus. You can see that each of the slots for these SSDs has a little screw. That screw needs to be removed. You slide the SSD in place into the slot at the back, and then you put that screw in, capturing the SSD and holding it in place. Like I said before, we just use a screwdriver to unscrew the screw that's on that standoff. Then we slide the one end of the SSD into the slot, push the other end of the SSD down, and screw in the screw, capturing the SSD in place. We'll just go ahead and do the same thing for all 8 of the SSDs. Once that's done, we can slip the case back on and screw in that knurled thumb screw, and now it's all put back together, but it's got a bunch of storage inside now. Now, I really wanted to put this thing on my network rack, but if you've seen in previous videos, you know that thing is absolutely packed. Holding it up next to the shelf that I really want to put it on, the shelf was actually a little bit too short, so I actually had to move that shelf up a little bit. Then I had to shuffle things around on the rack so that I'd have room for this F8 SSD Plus NAS. After all that work, you can see that it slides in nicely. It's like the spot was made for it, and it looks really clean. I love how small it is, and yet how much power and how much storage it's capable of. With that in place, I just had to run a new Ethernet cable down from my network switch to the F8 SSD Plus and plug in the power. After that, you can use their PC application to discover this device and get it set up. I always reserve the IP address in my router. And after that, you can start using it, easily mapping it to your PC so it's a network drive, and use it just like you would any other NAS. I've been using this for a while, and this thing has been really snappy. I actually use it for storing my 3D modeling files on so that I can quickly access them and have a nice backup. Overall, this thing has been really nice for both home use and for my YouTube channel stuff, providing really quick access to files, and it's something I expect to see more network attached storage systems using SSDs rather than physical hard drives. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I really thank you guys for watching. If you're interested in this product, I did leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. And thanks to TerraMaster for sending this over for me to check out. I'm sure there'll be other TerraMaster products in the future, but let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments. I'll leave a link to this thing in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. And as always, thanks for watching. See ya.